can't believe I'm actually filming this video because I wanted to film this video for such a long time, and if you're watching this, I've actually mustered up the courage to post this for people to see. I'm doing this for a couple reasons. One, for myself. Two, if it helps anyone, just one person, then that would make me feel awesome. Three, I feel like depression and eating disorders and this kind of stuff needs to be talked about more. I mean, I don't get why these subjects are so uncomfortable. I mean, you feel more comfortable saying like, oh, I was in the hospital because I had mono, instead of, oh, I was in the hospital because I was depressed, or I don't know. I want to start breaking the silence, and I'm just gonna tell my story, I guess. My battle with depression started, the earliest I can think of distinctly was when I was in grade 7. And I was all depressed throughout grade 7, and I took my depression in an artistic way. And I had a sketchbook, and the drawings were of like ways of me trying to like kill myself, and it wasn't really a plan. I never had a plan. So my sketchbook, I left it out one day, and I think a part of me left it out because I was hoping that my mom would see it, because I was desperately wanting help, but I didn't know how to ask for it. And I went to school that day, and I came back home, and we were driving to baseball or softball, and she confronted me about it, and immediately the part of me that still wanted to be depressed in a way was like, no, this can't be happening, like, I can't believe you found it, why did you look at my sketchbook? And yeah, and then she drove me to the hospital in the city, and I got doctors coming to ask me questions like about my depression, and I completely shut down from that point, and I was so angry at my mom for taking me to the hospital. And I got admitted because I was suicidal, and also the main reason was because I wouldn't talk. Whenever anybody like asked me a question, I would just like completely ignore them, and throughout this video you'll see me shutting down and not talking is a big pattern in my life, and it still is, and I'm still trying to work through it. So I was in the psychiatric ward for I think about 3 to 2, I think it was like 3 or 4 days, and during that time I was super unhappy, and I was not happy to be there because you can feel completely trapped. Everybody watches you, there's all these rules, there's people coming in to take blood work all the time and trying to talk to you. And as the days progressed, I was getting less angry at my mom, and I was talking more, and then I had to get out of the psychiatric ward, I had to like write an emergency plan. So if I was feeling depressed or suicidal again, then I'd have this emergency plan. And they give you this booklet called Dealing with Depression, so you kind of know. And then the doctors decided to put me on antidepressants, and they diagnosed me with extreme or severe depression, like the highest one, I think. I don't know. This is like all a blur, kind of. And I was on antidepressants, and then summer of grade 8, I mean, I was better, but at the same time I wasn't. It was like the antidepressants, I really don't like antidepressants at all because they created this like fake illusion of happy. And for me, it never really got to the root of the problem of why I was so sad. So these feelings were still there, but the antidepressants were just creating this like fake happiness. And I ended up going off of them, I think, in grade 8, and in grade 8 I really got introduced to the whole self-esteem issues. I kind of ditched my really good friends in elementary school for this kind of more popular girl, and she really took a toll on me. She never bullied me or anything. We were like actually really good friends. It's just like she was super popular and gorgeous, and I kind of felt like just the ugly +1 next to her. And then I realized I didn't want to be friends with her anymore. And during this time I was fighting with my mom a lot, and I got back in touch with my old friends in elementary school and I was friends with them. And in grade 8 I was like kind of bullied by this girl that I used to be friends with, and it was this whole misunderstanding that her like mom thought I was like talking about her, and she sent me messages like, "You're never gonna get a boyfriend," and her friends would like call me and tell me like one of my friends wasn't real, and it was actually quite horrible. And that lasted for only like a few weeks, and then it kind of blew over. And I'm proud of how I handled that situation. I never like said anything rude back. That kind of blew over, and during that time I decided that I was gonna go live with my dad, and he lives in the States, like 45 minutes across, 45 minutes from where my mom lives, like during the border and stuff. So I left my mom's house, and I left earlier than I was supposed to. I think I left like a month earlier than school, before school ended. And during grade 9 year, I became really fixated with the idea of being perfect, and that I had to be skinny and pretty, and I had to wear makeup in order to be beautiful. And this kind of has to tie in with the whole popular friend thing that I was friends with. So when I went into grade 9, I never went to school without makeup, and I was super just, I felt like I needed to kind of fake who I was for people to like me, and I kind of did that. I faked who I was, and I was still really unhappy. And then I remember distinctly I started feeling really fat, and I got introduced to kind of my eating disorder then. And I remember telling my friend that lived in Canada, we were still friends, that I was fat and that I just, like, I should stop eating. So that's kind of like what I did, in a way. It was, I mean, it wasn't like a lot, but like, so I would just skip meals sometimes, or I would really restrict on what I was eating. And then I got in a fight with my dad because everything was beginning to be really hard, and I needed a break from the environment in my dad's house. And it was during the middle of the school week, I think it was like a Wednesday or something like that, and he wouldn't let me go visit my mom, but I really felt like I couldn't go to school the next day, and he said I had to. And I went upstairs, and that night I was feeling really bad, and like things were too hard, and I just didn't want to live anymore. And I still had my antidepressants. I kept them in a little, like, I'm gonna go to get it. Okay. I kept my antidepressants in this little thing. I guess for some reason I kept them in there because maybe one day I would want to end my life. So I kept them in this little thing, and I swallowed a whole bunch, and I laid in my bed, and I guess I waited to die, and I just laid there. And then I remember thinking of my mom, and then this spark of like wanting to live like shot through my body, and I called my mom. And she was living in Canada at the time, and this is all kind of a blur, but what ended up happening is that my dad ended up driving me to the hospital in Canada, and he left, and my mom came and took care of me, and my stepmom's sister was my nurse, and I'm so thankful for her because she was amazing and she helped me a lot. And then they did what they had to do to get those pills out of me, and what ended up happening is that the doctors decided that I should go live with my mom again. So then I went back to living with my mom, and grade 9 wasn't a terrible year. It was better than most, but I was still kind of depressed, and I was still unhappy, and I was still really moody towards my mom, and my mom and me have just, we never really got along, and I don't know why. And I think my whole life I just felt like I don't know, we just never got along, and I'm still trying to figure that out, and we get along way better than we did in the past. But I isolated myself from my family and my friends, and I'd come home and I would just not really, it was like I was numb and I was empty, and it was just kind of like these fake feelings of happiness and pretending to be happy were kind of surrounding me. And I felt really alone, like no one understood me, and like no one could ever possibly understand me, and that I had to keep everything a secret, and that I had to shut down and not talk to anybody. And yeah, and then in grade 9, my eating disorder kind of started to pick up more. I wasn't eating as much, and I think I was like 95 pounds, but then I kept on, then my period stopped, I think June, and then the beginning of grade 10 is when my eating disorder really started to heighten. And then my papa died, and I think I was like 89 pounds for like 3 months, and my eating disorder, I say eating disorder because I wasn't anorexic and I wasn't bulimic, I was like both. Some days I would make myself throw up if I ate, and some days I would completely fast and not eat anything. And this cycle lasted for a long time, and I was dropping a lot of weight, and I remember feeling helpless, and like I had a goal weight, and every time I would get close to that goal weight, it never seemed like enough. It was like the more weight I lost, it was like the happier I became, or the more unhappy I became. And yeah, it was like this fixated thing with having to be skinny, and no matter how thin I was getting, it didn't seem like it was ever going to be enough. And I started to kind of motivate myself to talk to my school counselor, and then I started to get healthy, and I was really fixated with getting healthy, but at the same time I was still like restricting calories, and then I got up to like 100 pounds, and I was still wanting to lose like 5 pounds because I wanted to be 95, and it was really hard because I was growing, and I wasn't a 00 anymore. I was like a size 3, and I like had to keep on getting new pants and new, not really new tops, but new pants, because my hips were getting bigger and my thighs were getting bigger, and I was just really fixated with getting healthy, and the healthy wasn't really working out because I was still like restricting calories. I kind of almost totally forgot, at the end of grade 10, I got depressed again, and I was admitted in the hospital because I wanted to kill myself, and they said that I had high anxiety about schoolwork and people, and that they were trying to like convince me to take antidepressants again, but I was like so like not into that. And basically, to de-stress my life, they omitted me from my classes. And then I started to actually take control of my life and just eat what I wanted to eat, and without doing it in an obsessive kind of way. And I started getting better through like meditation and yoga. And now I'm at a point in my life where I can say I am actually really happy with my body, and I'm not depressed. Everyone has their ups and downs, and I still go through my ups and downs where I'm really sad, but I'm not depressed anymore, and I don't have an eating disorder anymore. I want to start sharing my experience so people don't feel alone, because I think it's all too common, all of these things that we go through, but no one really speaks about it. And I kind of want to start breaking the silence, and my story is just one of many.